Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
Welcome back, everybody. Let me introduce our speaker for today, Dorothy Hunt. Dorothy serves as the spiritual director of Moon Mountain Sangha, teaching at the request of Adyashanti. She has practiced psychotherapy since 1967 and is the founder of the San Francisco Center for Meditation and Psychotherapy. Self-inquiry, as taught by Ramana Maharshi, led to the first of a series of awakenings. In meeting Adyashanti, she was invited to see beyond identifications with either the absolute or the relative. Dorothy is the author of Only This and Leaves from Moon Mountain, a contributing author to The Sacred Mirror, Listening from the Heart of Silence, and the online journal Undivided. Dorothy offers satsang, retreats, and private meetings in the Bay Area and elsewhere by invitation. Welcome, Dorothy.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be back with you. I see a number of faces that are familiar to me from my other times joining you. And welcome to any people who are new. I'm coming to you from my dining room this morning. What I would like to have us feed on for our time together is peace. And not a piece of this or that, but the deep peace that you and I truly are when we discover our Buddha nature. Many years ago, I was privileged to attend a retreat for psychotherapists in the Rocky Mountains in Colorado with Thich Nhat Hanh. And one of the very first things he said to us was this, and I wrote it down because I thought it was an important way to begin our time together. And he said, peace is important, but not as important as our capacity to enjoy it. Peace is right here in the present moment, but we find it boring. So we look elsewhere. Drugs, alcohol, sex, thinking, worrying. And so I would ask you, is peace boring? Is peace boring? Who would you be in the absence of conflict? So what I'm going to talk about today is finding peace in the midst of conflict and chaos and all the things that we have going on in our own lives today, the pandemic, a political upheaval, systemic racism, fires, air that we can't breathe well, etc. You know as well as I do all that we've been faced with in many months, actually. Of course, there's also the beauty of nature, you know, the trees that are turning, some of them, the sky, when it is blue, right where I am, it's still pretty foggy, but, you know, I think it's Christian, you have this cat picture, that I just was so drawn to because I had a cat that looked just like that, a tabby that lived to be 19 years old. So anyway, I just love that little kitty picture. We have pets, we have friends, we have children or family. There are many, many things that are on the other side of the chaos. However, it's often really difficult to imagine that peace is here regardless of conditions. So I just would ask you, you know, this question is peace boring? Do you find, as many of us probably do, that your mind would rather be entertained or even agitated rather than quiet? I'm not suggesting the mind needs to be quiet, but only that the mind itself is pretty restless. And when we think we're going to find peace there, we're often disappointed. There's something in the egoic consciousness aspect of ourselves that always is wanting to control, or try to, good luck, try to control life rather than accept it. It's always projecting a fearful future, or frequently projecting a fearful future rather than living here and now. And the present moment is really the only place we can find our true nature. It's the only place we can be awake. And it's the only place that it's where it's possible to discover the peace that's here in every moment, without regard to what the mind is doing or thinking or what circumstances are. So I guess my question is, could we just observe our own mind? And like Anthony DeMello said, let's observe it as a bird watcher would and not as a dog trainer. So when we really can observe the mind, we understand kind of what hooks us, where our attention is constantly trying to find its magnet, whether it's drama or victimhood or conflict or rage or sadness. I mean, it moves around, of course, but can we observe our mind really lovingly without judging it, and get to know what the dramas are and how they create an emotional and energetic field? As you know, a single thought can project into our emotional field, our energetic field. And we can see how we can remain really rigidly attached to our opinions, our judgments, our narratives, whatever those may be. And even as I'm sure many of you have discovered, even when we touch a profound peace, how quickly the mind wants to return from there to reassert itself in time and in a separate identity, so-called separate identity. So we may long for peace, but usually our conditioned mind imagines that it is a peace that isn't here now. So how would you answer this or fill in this blank? I would be at peace, or I will be at peace when. I will be at peace when. And then fill in the blank, because we imagine peace is going to require conditions to be different. However, have you noticed, most of us have noticed, that our thought of peace when never really delivers peace now. And it's not because it's not here now, it's because we want something else. And in your own experience, when you get something that you want, you're happy for a moment. And the reason you're happy is not actually because you got something that you wanted. It's because you stopped wanting to be somewhere else. You stopped for a moment imagining that something else would bring you what you wanted, and you got what you wanted. But we've all known in our own experience how short-lived that can be, whether it's a relationship or a new car, a new job, or a different political situation or whatever. There's a short-lived peace when we stop trying to be someplace else, when we get what the conditioned mind imagines will bring us what we want. So how do we increase our capacity to enjoy peace, to enjoy silence, to enjoy our breath, our body, this earth, one another? How do we increase our capacity to enjoy peace that Thich Nhat Hanh was asking us if we actually found boring? And I think, of course, we have to discover where it is before we can enjoy it. Otherwise it's just a thought. We have to have an experience that's conscious in terms of our ability to touch that deeper reality that's in each one of us. It's not just in each one of us. It's what we are. The deep truth of our nature is peace, is openness, is awake, your own awakeness, every one of us. That's our birthright. We were born with that. And it really means being willing to be truly alive in the present moment. Not continually trying to manipulate or change or repress or be at war with or struggle with ourselves in the moment in which we find ourselves. Life is this just endless creation, moment to moment, our own lives, the life of the universe. It's constantly moving itself in and out of form, in and out of whatever situation we find ourselves in. So where are we going to find this often elusive peace? And I guess what I want to just invite you to do right now is to just stop. Just stop. Stop. And ask yourself, is there something that's already quiet? Is there something that's already silent? Is there something that's already open? Open through your looking, open through your listening, already open before you try to become open or silent. Is there something already at peace? Regardless of what your mind may be thinking or how your body may be feeling or what the situation is, even in the world today. It's not that there aren't many things that we want to address, that we might not have a solution for, but we have compassion for, and so forth. You can find peace just by stopping. Just stopping. And this that's awake in you and in myself, this that's awake, it's not trying to change the moment. It's illuminating the moment. There's nothing we could know or think or experience ever without this awareness, this awake awareness that we are, that each of us is, whether we are that knowingly or not. It's true. There was a Zen quote I liked, said something to the effect, if we understand, life is just what it is. If we don't understand, life is just what it is. So it's kind of like we're going to get what's here, whether we know where it's coming from or not. But when you have this sense of the nirvana that's right here in the midst of samsara, there's no, as you've heard many times, because it's a Buddhist group, there's no lotus without mud. Our lives are rooted in whatever they are rooted in. And I'm not talking about the deep and profound mystery of the ground of being. I'm just talking about the mud of our life, the mud of our stuff, the mud of our, our neuroses or our ways of dealing with the world defensively and all of those things. But can we see through that to the ground that actually we share, the deep ground of being? Being is always here, being itself, in you and me, in this world. We may wish it were being some other way, but as you know, it's being however it is, moment to moment to moment, based on causes and conditions. So causes and conditions are constantly defining and refining and moving and so forth and so on. So we often think we're going to find peace of mind, right? Now, I'm not talking about big mind in the Buddhist sense of big mind. I'm talking about conditioned mind. We say we want peace and we're longing for it often. Our mind is wanting peace and so forth. But I want to read to you a dialogue that a student had with Nisargadatta Maharaj. Maybe some of you know of him. He was a guru in the last century in India. And it's a little lengthy, but I think it's worth sharing with you because I think we can all relate. So the student comes to him and he says, I seek peace of mind. I got disgusted with all the cruel things done by the so-called Christians in the name of Christ. So for some time, I was without religion. Then I got attracted to yoga. And Nisargadatta says, what did you gain? He said, well, I studied the philosophy of yoga, and it did help me. So then he was asked, in what way? In what way did it help you? By what signs did you conclude that you had been helped? Well, he says, good health is something quite tangible. And Maharaj says, no doubt it is very pleasant to feel fit. Is pleasure all you expected from yoga? And he replies, no, the joy of well-being is the reward of hatha yoga. But yoga in general yields more than that. It answers many questions. So then he was asked by Nisargadatta, what do you mean by yoga? He says, the whole teaching of India, evolution, reincarnation, karma, and so on. So then Maharaj says, all right, you got all the knowledge you wanted, but in what way are you benefited by it? He said, it gave me peace of mind. And then Nisargadatta questions him, did it? Did it? Is your mind at peace? Is your search over? Well, no, not yet, he confesses. And then this is sort of the heart of what I want to share with you. So Nisargadatta says, naturally, there will be no end to it because there is no such thing as peace of mind. Mind means disturbance. Restlessness itself is mind. Yoga is not an attribute of the mind, nor is it a state of mind. Examine closely and you will see that the mind is seething with thoughts. It may go blank occasionally, but it does it for a time and reverts to its usual restlessness. A becalmed mind is not a peaceful mind. You say you want to pacify your mind. Is he who wants to pacify the mind himself peaceful? So then the guy says, no, I'm not at peace. I take the help of yoga. And then Maharaj says, don't you see the contradiction? For many years, you sought your peace of mind. You could not find it, for a thing essentially restless cannot be at peace. Then the student says, well, there's some improvement. We can relate to it. There's some improvement. And then Maharaj said, the peace you claim to have found is very brittle. Any little thing can crack it. What you call peace is only an absence of disturbance. I thought this was an incredibly important thing to consider. What you call peace is only absence of disturbance. It's hardly worth the name. The real peace cannot be disturbed. Can you claim peace of mind that is unassailable? And the guy says, well, I'm striving. Nisargadatta says, striving too is a form of restlessness. So the student asks, so what remains? And the answer from Nisargadatta is, the self does not need to be put to rest. It is peace itself, not at peace. And of course, the self he's talking about is capital S. Some would call that no self. Some would call it self, capital S. It's peace itself, not at peace. Only the mind is restless. All it knows is restlessness with its many modes and grades. The pleasant are considered superior and the painful are discounted. What we call progress is merely a change from the unpleasant to the pleasant. Think about that. What we call progress is merely a change over from the unpleasant to the pleasant. But changes by themselves cannot bring us to the changeless, for whatever has a beginning must have an end. The real does not begin. It only reveals itself as beginningless and endless, all-pervading, all-powerful, immovable, prime mover, timelessly changeless. What has been attained may be lost again. Only when you realize the true peace, the peace you have never lost, that peace will remain with you, for it was never away. Instead of searching for what you do not have, find out what it is that you have never lost. that which is there before the beginning and after the ending of everything, that to which there is no birth and no death. It goes on, but I won't read it anymore to you of that. But I think it provides an incredibly important thing for us to look at in terms of where we're looking for peace, where we think we're going to find it, how the mind, conditioned mind, imagines peace will come when something else happens, but actually we miss the present moment where peace is already here. And it's here because there's nothing apart from true nature, the source of all, the source of everything, the source of all form, whether it's thought form, feeling form, body form, tree form, bird form, whatever, both physical forms and mental forms come from the same. And our Buddha nature, which is peace itself, awakeness itself, awareness itself, and none of those words, because those words can't describe what we're pointing to. But that which we can't really describe is here in every single experience, every single moment. Whether we're experiencing anger or fear or sadness or confusion or clarity of mind, there's something that's clear even when the mind is confused, right? How do you know you're confused? Something is aware of it. Something is awake to that state of mind. It's also awake to a state of mind that may be calm for a while, may be peaceful for a while, in the sense of being quiet. But the mind lives in time, Our mind lives in time. It lives in duality. That's where it operates. It's not wrong. We're not making that an enemy. It's just to see that, the absolute and the relative really can't be pulled apart except by a thought. So we see that the absolute background of every single foreground of relative experience is the same. We can't actually pull them apart unless we think that we can. So when you really begin to see the non-dual nature of life itself, you realize everything is included. There's nothing excluded. One of my friends who's deceased, Suzanne Siegel, she once told us, she said, where would you put something that you wanted to be rid of in the infinite you are? Where would you send it in the infinite that you are? I always love that. So, the well-worn analogy of the waves in the ocean, it's still a good one, because beneath the waves is an ocean of peace. And we're always trying to change the wave, right? Manipulate it or suppress it or deny it or judge it or somehow make the moment other than it is. And we think if we accept the moment, then the next moment will just be the same. But that's not necessarily the case, because the moment also has its response, doesn't it? And when that response comes from that deeper dimension of ourselves, it's much clearer, it's more intelligent, it's more compassionate and loving when we actually are seeing from that deeper dimension of ourselves. Sometimes we will, and sometimes it will be the relative side, what notices which side is up, It's the same thing that notices which side is up, that lives and moves in you and in me. So, I don't know, maybe some of you are familiar with John Dido Laurie Roshi of a monastery in New York before his passing. But he spoke a lot about being the barrier. And that really has been my experience as well. How do we relate to those waves? The waves that may feel tumultuous, the waves that we wish weren't there because we've identified with just this little boat or something trying to ride the waves, not knowing that boat and those waves are also made of this ocean of awareness, this ocean of consciousness, this ocean of our true nature. So when we talk about being the barrier, we allow ourselves to actually be the energy of the moment, especially those moments that are challenging. And it's like letting it fill your consciousness in that moment, rather than what can I do to get rid of something? It's like, can I actually experience this? Can I find out what it is, what it's made of? Can I be at one with it? Because whatever we're not separate from, we have less or no suffering around it. It may be an intense feeling. It may be, I mean, many of us, I'm sure, have felt a lot of anger at what's happened in our country of late, and maybe many other ways and times and whatnot. But what's that? What's the felt sense of that energy? If I take the narrative out of it, if I take the story out of it, even for a moment, and I just feel at one with whatever the energy is, now it actually always begins to transform. We don't do it to get rid of it. If we do, now we have a different agenda, and it isn't actually looking. It's not actually being curious about what's here now. But you begin to find out that, there's nothing, literally nothing, that can't take us to our true nature if we're willing to dive deeply enough into it. And it's not about having to do that every minute, or, we have lives to live. We're doing other things, but those things that keep coming back and coming back and coming back. There's something that just wants to be seen, to be loved, to be understood, to be held, in the compassionate heart of awareness. It's not wrong that these things come up, but they do come up and allow us to really investigate how tightly often our mind is holding onto some narrative about a self, that is doing it right or doing it wrong. But whatever that clench is, there's a clench maybe in the throat or the heart or the mind or the gut, whatever that clench is, we're just invited to let it be met consciously by what's already here. This that's at peace. This that accepts the moment. This that is not struggling with the struggle even. It's not saying don't struggle. Here's struggle. Okay, there's something that's not struggling. What's the effect when we just allow this to consciously be felt together? Not one or the other, but here, both. And this awareness that can go anywhere has no barriers. It just kind of moves inside the clench, and it does its thing. It's not about, I got to pull it apart, analyze everything, and be in therapy for 35 years in order to get to the bottom of it. Actually, not that I'm against therapy. It was my profession for many years. But this is a much gentler and simpler and non-mental way of actually addressing something energetically that just wants to be here, to be held, to be, brought back home. Brought back home to our, what I call the heart of awareness. We could call it Buddha nature, Christ consciousness. The words are not it, but there's something that's here to be liberated, right? To be loved and to be liberated. And the peace that you are begins to do that when we begin to notice that it's here. It's here. And maybe we're even consciously inviting that, maybe we stop 100 times a day to notice, okay, this that I thought I was seeking for, is it already here? Is something already awake? Is something already at peace? Is there something that's already quiet and open? Yeah. And it's not going to be found in our thoughts. That's the restless mind. It doesn't mean mind doesn't have a place, obviously. It does. It's an incredible tool. It makes a great, great servant. But the master is not our egoic mind. In fact, from the perspective of our true nature, it simply does not exist as some separate entity. There is no ego. That's a thing. It's a movement of thought. And the more we can see into that dimension of ourself, the more we're invited to look more deeply, to look at what we truly are. What's beneath that? Who is it that's feeling this? Or thinking this? Or seeing this? Who or what is that? Do you know? And if we don't go to a thought, we can just stop and realize, I don't really know. But I'll stay put, with that experience of being here in the unknown. And then, as many of you, I know, many of you have discovered in your own experience, something reveals itself. Can we say what it is? I can't, The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. That seems very true. You can't really say what it is, but you can feel that it is. That it is in you, in life. Here, before a beginning, here, after an ending, here, just here, now. That's the eternal now that's here in this moment. Do you know? And it's seeing from the timeless dimension of yourself. It's not seeing from the mind's perspective, the way that much of our life is being lived, seeing through the lens of our conditioned mind, and all the ways that we've held on to our viewpoints, and they're not wrong, they're not necessarily bad, but just the invitation is to see them for what they are and not for who you are or for who the quote they are. We're in a us and them on steroids in this country. The divisions are great, and I don't need to speak about it because you all know, but that sense of an us and them is not seeing from our Buddha nature. It's not seeing from that deepest dimension of ourself. It's not seeing from the mystery that really sees the common ground. Does that mean we'll agree with everything? No, we're here living this dream. We're living this play, we might call it. The thing is, the same thing is playing all the roles. And we may or may not like the role that we've been given to play in this relative world. But when you find out who is really living it, what is really living it, what is giving you life, could you be here without your breath and gift? It's a gift. Gift from the infinite. Every moment that the body is alive, It's sort of seeing from that dimension and when we do, we can't help but be grateful. We can't help but be grateful. Even though they're challenges, those are all opportunities to look more deeply. So I want to stop and hear from you all. In the remaining time, I'd rather chat with you than keep talking. And I don't know why I went to speaker view, but now I'm back to gallery view so I can see you all. So I would love to chat with you, or if there's anything you want to share. I might just add one thing before we do that, because I did bring a couple of short poems that maybe I could maybe read later, but it seems like it's a possibility to read now. And one of those is another thing from Thich Nhat Hanh called For Warmth. And as you know, he lived in Vietnam. He was a monk there. He saw his village, destroyed many times, both by the Viet Cong and the United States and so forth and so on. It's not that he never felt angry. He will be very honest about that. But here's a poem he wrote about that. He said, I hold my face in my two hands. It's just a very tender thing. I hold my face between my hands. No, I am not crying. I hold my face between my hands to keep my loneliness warm. Two hands protecting, two hands nourishing, two hands to prevent my soul from leaving me in anger. So we're not talking about denying anger, for example, or anything else. It's part of the wholeness of being. But how do we care for it? How do we care for it? And then the other poem I wanted to share with you is a Wendell Berry poem, The Peace of Wild Things, because we each need to find, and I'm sure you all have done this on your own too, where it's more possible, we might say, to feel the peace that's present. So Wendell Berry says in his poem, when despair grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear for my life and my children's lives maybe, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. So that's another thing I'd be interested if any of you would want to share where you find it easiest to be connected with this peace that I've been trying to point to. Okay, I'm going to shut up and listen now for a little bit. Anyway, be happy to chat.
Hi, my name is Bob.
Yes, hi, Bob.
I want to thank you for everything that you said. To be specific about it, I'd have to repeat your entire talk, so that's obviously not useful. But in the beginning, you mentioned 4 words that I want to be able to access for the rest of my life. Find peace by stopping. I found such depth of beauty and wisdom in that, and something that would just be so useful to me. I think I thank you for that the most. Find peace by stopping. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a lovely, lovely thing to remember.
Hi, Dorothy.
Wave your hand. Oh,
Hi.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, nice to see you again. The words that I think I'm going to remember forever is view the mind as a bird watcher rather than an animal trainer. Wow, that was so profound. Oh my God, because I've spent decades trying to train my mind and, still doing it. And to see it as a bird rather than an animal to train is just like the best.
Well, that was Anthony DeMillo. It wasn't original, but I've always liked that quote. Yeah.
I appreciate it. And also, I wanted to comment that when I have experienced that peace, where I've been the peace, there's an experience of emptiness, and it triggers a somatic response of the loneliness from my childhood and the emptiness of my childhood. And then that takes me right out of this present moment's experience of that peace, or the being of the peace. So that's what I'm trying to negotiate that. If you have any words.
Yeah, it's something that many people learn they have to negotiate, because if when we were young and most open, life was cruel, or we were abandoned, or there was some trauma or whatever, then we all, somatically, we have often associated that degree of openness with unsafety. It's not safe to be that open, right? So then we get to the so-called spiritual life journey, whatever. And of course, now we're interested in being open. And now we realize that openness, emptiness is another word for openness, The empty that we talk about is actually full of potential. It's not the way the mind imagines emptiness is, the emptiness of a lonely place in ourselves. That may occur, but this is the space where we're all one, alone, all one. And so it just takes kind of a continual dipping your toe, I think, into the feelings that want to be here when that happens, right? Do you know? Rather than trying to get rid of them, can we bring them close? Can we bring those fears closer? Can we learn what they're made of? You see, we think they have this incredible reality to them. And I'm not saying the experience doesn't isn't real. It's a real experience if we feel fear. But there's a way that the body can handle it if we're willing to have the experience. Just yesterday, I was crossing the street near my house. And finally, the air was clear enough to take a walk. And there was a 4-way stop. And I started to cross because all the cars had stopped. And suddenly a car just whooshed up the hill. It stopped literally 1 foot from my body. 1 foot. I've never, ever been that close to being hit. And immediately, the body had its reaction. The heart started pounding. The breath was, the legs were a little shaky. Just that of that moment. And then, the body just kind of knew how to keep walking it off, so to speak. It's not to say that I haven't returned to that, but if we had a lot of those kinds of experiences of being unsafe, then it's going to be even a deeper unfolding that wants to happen. But it can happen. It can happen. But I think we have to be curious and embracing in a loving way of what wants to be felt in whatever moment it is. Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
You're welcome. Yeah. Jeff.
Hi. Thank you for an incredible talk. I was moved by so many things like other people were, but in particular, the Nisargadatta statement about there is no peace of mind.
Yeah.
That peace and mind the mind by nature is restless. Peace is not really available there. What you call peace is a lack of disturbance. Yeah, I really appreciate that.
And I think that, when we reach a certain level of understanding or revelation, we might say, we can begin to feel that everything is okay, regardless of what it is, because of this dimension that you're speaking about, that you were touched by. Like, it's okay if life is good. It's okay if life is not so good. Of course we have a preference. I have a preference. You have a preference. We would rather have pleasant than unpleasant experiences. We're wired for health rather than illness, but something's okay regardless when you can feel and sense into that dimension of yourself that actually isn't running away from anything, nor is it grabbing hold. It's neither pushing away or trying to hold on. So yeah, I found that dialogue really helpful myself the first time I read it, because you think of, well, how can I make my mind peaceful? And he's saying, hey, that's the wrong place to look, right? Now, yeah, it's available, but not there. Of course, big mind in the Buddhist sense is the emptiness or the openness that does hold everything. So we can, quibble about terms, but this is the mind of conditioned mind. Yeah. Anything else, Jeff?
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes, Jim. Hi.
Dorothy, great to see you. Great to see you. Thank you again for another luminous talk.
Good
I'm
to
concerned
see you.
about your comments about entertainment. Last night, I discovered a new BBC series on Amazon of Tom Jones, the old Henry Fielding novel, and it's totally delightful. Is this just a Roman circus again that we're being distracted from the?
No. It's part of the wholeness of life. Do you know?
Oh, good.
If we can't enjoy having a form and being here, I'm not sure, that we should try to be judging everything that we enjoy as something wrong. I certainly don't, and I like to be entertained, and I'm happy to hear that that's a good series because,
It's very good.
I'm always looking for things.
That's the right answer. Thank you.
Yeah, the judgment is that's what, we're talking about, these shoulds and shouldn'ts that just make us in an incredible prison so that we don't feel the freedom of being where we are. So sometimes there's a time to look deeply Sometimes there's a time to go to the movies, and now we can mostly just go to the movies on our TV set. But it's not either or. We have this human incarnation for whatever reasons we've come in as this form, and they're varied. The mind stream that has moved into form for each of us is different. But yeah, enjoy Tom Jones.
I shall. He's adorable too. Thank you, Dorothy.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I have a comment. This is Mark.
Yeah. Hi, Mark.
Hi there. This is, I guess, a leading question, perhaps, but could you speak a little bit about the role of meditation in all of this? What you speak about, I resist meditation. I try to keep a daily practice, but if you could expound on that a bit, thank you.
Yes, I hesitate to say this to kind of a strictly Buddhist group, if that's what this is strictly, but I think that our definition of meditation has been way too limited. If meditation can't be our life, it's not really going to do us a lot of good. We could become really good meditators, and some people are drawn to it, which is beautiful. If you love Zazen, you'll do it. You will do it. But there are others who find other ways that bring them into the deepest dimension of themselves, I can speak to Christian about just sitting on my back step, petting my cat. Some of the best meditations I've had. Having a sip of your tea, really meditatively, like a la Thich Nhat Hanh, seeing that the clouds and the sunshine and, the whole universe is there in the cup of tea. I'm not bashing sitting meditation at all. It's tremendously useful. And I have had many years of that. But the minute it becomes something that's only duty and there's no real presence there, I would question what good is it doing in that sense. But for those who are drawn to it, we don't have to be sitting on our cushion to notice and to be imbibing the silence of our true nature. Do you know? We can sit in a park, or if you're lucky enough to have a backyard, or even looking at the window at the sky, and there's a sense that we can step into the silence and the presence. Because meditation, at least for me, it's simply being here for what's here, because that's what our true nature's doing. It's here for what's here, period. And on your meditation cushion, you might not want to be here for what's here because your mind is yapping or you're planning or, you all know what happens when you try to sit. But then after a while, things do begin to quiet, don't they? And then we can be in touch with that deeper dimension. It has space when we allow it space to reveal itself. So sitting meditation is wonderful, but it's not the only form of meditation. Do you know? And of course, there are many types of meditation, but I'm really talking about the simplest thing of being totally present in the moment for this moment.
Thank you.
Does that do it for you? Okay.
Well, thank you so much, Dorothy, for a wonderful talk.
You are quite
Appreciate
welcome.
it.
Great to be with you all. Thanks again.
We have time for some announcements. Anybody have an announcement they would like to make? Yes, Richard.
Next Saturday is our day-long retreat from 10 to 4:30. J.D. Doyle is our teacher, and there is no charge to attend. Of course, Donna is encouraged for the teacher, and I think it'll be a very interesting day. She's got a lovely program set up for us, so you're welcome to attend.
Speaking of Donna, it's my responsibility to remind us all to go to the website and contribute, Donna. Suggested donation of 20, but that's a little bit bendable if you need not to spend quite so much or can afford to spend more. It supports all of our programs, and we do a lot of important work. So please don't forget to tune in to the website for Donna. Any other announcements today? I'm not seeing any hands. Dorothy, would you like to lead us in a dedication of merit? Is that something you...
Why don't you do that? I'd love to be a participant.
All right, I will. I will read our official one, which I think is one we're all used to. By the power and truth of this practice, may all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all be free from sorrow and the causes of sorrow. May all never be separated from the sacred happiness which is without sorrow. And may all live in equanimity, without too much attachment or too much aversion, believing in the equality of all that lives.
Amen.
Thanks, Dorothy. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you. Thank you all. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Dorothy.
Thank
you. Bye.
Thanks, Dorothy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dorothy.
Dorothy.
You're quite welcome. My pleasure.
Beautiful.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.